Speaking of which, should we go to the series finale? Oh, I'm sorry, season finale. We can only hope that it's the series finale of Rhodes to the Rotten that aired right after this fiasco went off the air.
We can do that? Sure.
Because the way they timed this, he gets his revenge on Malachi Black for all the things that Malachi Black has done, and then they show the Rhodes the Rotten segment, which featured him basically agreeing to lose to and helping put over Malachi Black in a fake match that they congratulated themselves after. So if it hadn't hurt Malachi Black's image to get beat flat in the middle of the ring on the wrestling program, it finished him off pretty much as a serious goddamn guy on the reality show program when they showed on camera this guy being so grateful to Cody for fucking letting him win.
I'll never forget it. What did he say? I'll never forget what your brother did for me. What did he do for you?
Well, we'll get there in a second. That was later in the program. But the show opened up with, again, my God, Brandi is training for a comeback. She's acting like she's had this great body of work to look back to, but can't leave her legacy like that. She has to have one more run. My God, has anybody ever figured out how long was she actually in the wrestling business? I mean, as a wrestler. She couldn't wrestle, so they made her a ring announcer?
I don't remember why, but I believe she started as a wrestler, a wrestling trainee. They made her a ring announcer. And then after Cody and her left WWE, she became a valet and did some wrestling. I don't know what the frequency of the wrestling was.
The point is, they're trying to act like she's Mildred Burke trying to make a comeback and get in the ring in her old shape or whatever. The baby's around now. I was hoping they would reveal that the baby's name was Damien and a new nanny would show up with a dog. That would have made this show interesting. But instead, we got Cody Rhodes giving QT Marshall and one of the Stooges a box with Brandi's placenta in it, explaining that she's going to eat it. Brian, you just had a child up there. Well, not you, but your family. Was there any boxing, transporting, or eating of placentas going on?
No, we don't do that kind of thing up here.
Who does?
Although I did get to use my one joke with the doctor, I'll never get to use it again. Which is whenever they turn to you and say, Dad, would you like to cut the umbilical cord? Yes, with my teeth. And every time it brings down the room. You're not a doctor.
So after we finished with the discussion of the placenta, this show at a long period of time had just Cody and Brandi sitting on a couch making small talk, and their small talk is interminable. And these things that they're talking about are not interesting. Even if they were happening to me, I wouldn't be interested. Cody showed up backstage at one of the AEW events, and this got a lot of play because some of the comments that you have made and the fact that you've said you want to see if Twinkle Toes or the Hardley Boys or any of their cohorts or ensemble shows up in this program. And as Cody is talking to the referees backstage, Pieface is standing in the background and his face is blurred out. So one of the Hardley Boys would not allow himself to be seen on this program, even in background, which may be the first example of good judgment either one of those two cretins has ever used. Now that settles the mystery that we had going on.
There are several people who did not want to have anything to do with that reality show. That was forced upon everyone backstage. And when I brought up the Omega and the Bucks, I kind of knew what the answer was already, but now everyone got to see it with the blurred face.
Of course, he didn't look that much different than he normally looks with his face blurred.
It hid nothing. I mean, it was completely obvious who it was.
The idea. still got the. It's just maybe his face wasn't blurred. Maybe it's just his face. So Cody's showing his baby pictures to everybody and hugging everybody, and MJF at least made one 7-second cameo. He said, "Hey, congratulations." No, just kidding. Go fuck yourself. Nobody cares, and left. So that was all right. And then suddenly they jumped to 5 weeks later. That's what it said on screen, 5 weeks later. And Brandi is training again. She's lost 35 pounds. That's what she says. 10 pounds of that was the baby, right? And then how much did the water that broke that we heard about, how much did that weigh? If you're carrying a fucking belly full of water around, once that breaks, you're down 5 to 7 pounds there. And then the placenta, that looked like a big box. After she flushed all that shit out her birth canal, she probably only had to lose about 6-7 pounds.
They really lost a great opportunity with the QT Cody feud where QT could have said, "And guess what, Cody? I ate the placenta." You trusted me, you fool.
I ate the placenta. Anyway, so then Cody asked Brandi about her ideas for her return. And obviously this is a work because she couldn't have said this with a straight face, but I'm just thinking that maybe they're trolling the audience because she's saying, well, what about a choir singing and I'm coming down in an elevator? And then Cody says, why don't you start at the bottom? And Brandi thinks she ought to be a heel and Cody thinks she ought to be a baby face. And each one of them says the fans would want that. I got news for them. The fans don't want either. They don't want either. So then they get into the Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes brawl and rivalry and etc. And Cody's admitting that he got booed in Charlotte, his hometown, and he's asking why he's getting booed. I wrote down real quickly his wife, his tattoos, his game show, probably his reality show. All those things may be contributory. And then Cody and Brandi do a bit about how tired he is. And again, it's not even like they manufactured some interesting shit for a fake reality show. This is not interesting. But then they go to Brandi again in the ring at QT's school, and she has to describe to him how they cut her open and pulled the baby out and all this other gross shit. So I'm trying to think, are they trying to make it gross to get men to watch it? Because men don't want this frilly fucking fluffy baby shower bullshit. So they're trying to make it grisly so men will watch it. But what men want to hear that a woman was sliced open and had a baby pulled out of her? What men, women, or children? What dogs, cats, ferrets? Who wants to hear that, Brian?
I don't know who the target audience for this show is, quite frankly. I think the target audience is Cody and Brandi Rhodes.
Cody and Brandi. And, you know, what I'm looking at in the ring while she's working out with QT, she's a beginner's class wrestling school level performer here. All admiration to her. She just had a baby. But she kept talking about that she thinks she should be a heel because she's enumerating all the ways that she's gotten this immense heat in the past, that she believes the entire reason she's had all this immense heat is because people were screaming, "We don't like you and want you to not be on the show." But she's confusing it with. So then they actually showed Cody and Malachi Black going over their shit in the back, talking it over, what they're going to do. Both these guys should be ashamed of themselves. I've mentioned before, Tony Khan is either an idiot for either not getting the final edit over this show or letting this particular stuff go on the show, but I blame Cody the most. I knew Dusty Rhodes in 1986, and I'm sorry. I have to think that if someone had said, "Dusty, we're going to put you on TV, but we want to shoot you talking your match with Flair over beforehand and then hugging each other and shaking hands and congratulating each other after you come back about how great it was. I don't think Dusty Rhodes would have done that. That's just my opinion. And I'm ashamed of his offspring for doing it. As well as I'm ashamed of him for talking about the character of Cody Rhodes and how this fake fucking match that they just obviously showed everybody was fake is so important to his future. And then Malachi Black beats Cody 1, 2, 3. And then there is not only Cody, but Arn Anderson and Dustin Rhodes ready to congratulate and hug and French kiss Malachi Black after the thing's over for laying Cody out. Oh, thank you for sodomizing and attacking and paralyzing my brother. That was great. Oh, I forgot. Cody had teased his retirement in the ring earlier and then come back and hug the guy who kicked his ass in their, obviously we now know, fake fight. And then Tony Khan comes out and verbally fillets Cody Rhodes. And they actually say, well, now the plan's for me to come back in New York City. So they've already told the people that they had their plan at that point, and this is all planned. It's all scripted. But he's still trying to, he might quit after that, according to what he's telling Tony Khan, because he's tired. So he might leave after that for a while. Because he's so tired. I'm tired, Brian. Tired of being alone. Tired. And then Cody and Brandi talked about how tired he was. And Brandi actually said, you've been burning at both ends for years. Well, some goddamn penicillin could have put a stop to that long ago. That was a quote. You've been burning at both ends for years. Wonder where he caught it from.
Is that why his hair turned white?
Possibly. After he spent the night in Brandi's house, I guess. His hair turned white. And he says he'll never turn heel, blah, blah, blah. I wrote, I hate all these people. And then 2 months later, they actually said that on screen. Now they're at Arthur Ashe Stadium, where he had told people the plan was for him to return, and guess what he did? He returned. And Brandi was back too, so she gets the triumphant walk. She was there for the reality show. Remember when we said, why the fuck is she there? Why would you bring your wife down to the ring and give her a spot to do where she flips off Malachi Black when he's laid waste to all your friends and your coach and you and everybody else? So they could get a fucking spot with Brandi for their reality show. And Brandi said, when you hear that noise, that means I didn't get forgotten. No, you weren't forgotten. Well, we tried, but we couldn't. You wouldn't let us. She thinks the cheers were for her and the groans were for somebody else, apparently. Because she got to walk down to in New York with Arn Anderson and Cody Rhodes. She's walked, so they're getting cheers, so it's for her. She's convinced that she is over, legitimately. And they showed Malachi Black winning this because that was a couple months ago. But Cody has said he doesn't have all the answers on the character of Cody Rhodes. If I could make it a thing where I could put a collar, like they have the dog collars that give them a shock, and I think this is very inhumane. I'd never do this, but the dog collar, it gives them a shock when they pass over the invisible fence to keep them in the yard.
Yeah, we have a neighbor over here who has one of those, yeah.
Yeah, well, he can go fuck himself, too, because I advise you to put a fucking fence up if you don't want your dog to get out, motherfucker, instead of giving him electric shock therapy like some goddamn mental patient in the 50s. But anyway, I would like to take one of those collars, and I'd like to put it on every wrestler in the business. And every time that one of them referred to what their character would do, I would like to put 7 million volts into that motherfucker's cranium. And maybe after the first time or three, they'd learn. That was the end of that show, I hope. Certainly to God, that cannot be brought back.
I certainly hope they do. I enjoy the tone-deaf family displaying their tone deafness on TV. I enjoy it. So we can laugh about it here on the show. But other than that, I don't know why anyone would watch this. I think part of the problem is, in Cody's head, Cody's the hero. And while there are certainly many kinds of heroes, I don't think anyone else thinks of Cody as a hero. But maybe if he took some time, he could be a stat hero.
That was probably one of the lower 10 percentile of segues on this program, but I'll try to do something with it, folks.
And that's a stat.
And that's a stat right there. I'll tell you who's a hero. All the people telling me that I didn't know who Lamar Jackson was. Apparently, Lamar Jackson was a football player for the University of Louisville, and he was quite accomplished. But since I don't watch football, I didn't know that because I don't pay any attention. If he'd have played basketball like people are supposed to at the University of Louisville, I might have known his name. But folks, he was merely a name listed in sample copy from our fine friends at Stat Hero. And I'll tell you this, it's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Now, for example, if you know how Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson blew up like that, if you know who those people are, then you'll be able to use Stat Hero to your advantage. Because, folks, Stat Hero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. Your name, or you name. Your name, or you name. You name your stakes. That's what I'm trying to say. You, as in you, the person I'm talking to now, will name your stakes with winner take all. You've got the advantage because Stat Hero is showing you their lineups ahead of time, and nobody else does that, according to the copy in front of me right now. You're in total control. You're the dominant one here. You crack the whip, and they grovel and say, yes, master, yes, master. Anyway, Stat Hero is DFS the way it was meant to be, one-on-one. And right now, you can play Stat Hero and change the odds. Go to stathero.com. That's STATHERO, stathero.com/JCE to sign up for free. And right now, you can get a 100% bonus match on your first deposit using the promo code JCE. They're matching your first deposit. So what do you got to lose? Your house, your car, your kids, your family, your livelihood?
Don't think of it that way. Think of all the things you can gain.
That's only if you go too far. See, if you don't go too far, you're going to win with these people. You'll lose with the other people. So maybe if you've already lost your house, your car, your wife, your dog, and your livelihood, play Stat Hero and win it all back. You might even get a better wife. Folks, go to stathero.com/JCE and enter the promo code JCE for 100% first deposit match. If you love the fantasy sports, you're going to love Stat Hero.